If you've been paying any attention at all, and maybe even if you haven't been, you may sense that there's something profoundly wrong with the U.S. military, the most respected institution in American life. It's corrupt. It's inefficient. It may, in fact, be a danger to our country. And by the way, it hasn't won a major war in over 80 years. The problem is not the people who serve in the military, it's the people who lead it. Some of the worst people in the country in charge of some of the best. If you sense all of that is true, it's just been confirmed. On New Year's Day, a group of over 200 active and retired military personnel released a document called the Declaration of Military Accountability. And the point was to inform the rest of us that the U.S. military is in fact being destroyed by the people who run it and is in fact a threat to the nation. Here's a portion of the letter. Quote, "We hereby apprise the American people that we have exhausted all internal efforts to rectify recent criminal activity within the armed forces. While implementing the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, military leaders broke the law, trampled constitutional rights, denied informed consent, permitted unwilling medical experimentation, and suppressed the free exercise of religion. Service members and family were significantly harmed by these actions. Their suffering continues to be felt financially, emotionally, and physically. These leaders refused to resign or take any other action to hold themselves accountable, nor have they attempted to repair the harm their policies and actions have caused. Since there is yet to be any accountability, the undersigned give our word to do everything morally permissible and legally possible to hold our own leadership accountable." Now, the whole letter is well worth reading. It's available online. In the meantime, Brad Miller is the veteran who organized it, and he joins us now. Mr. Miller, thank you very much for coming on. You get the sense as you read this...
Well, thank you so much, Tucker, for having me here.
Oh, it's our pleasure, because it's worth getting a window into what's actually happening in this multi-million person community we call the armed services that most Americans really don't have any visibility into. But you get the sense as you read this letter that it was a last-ditch effort on your part. Is that right?
Yeah, I think to some degree it is. When you read the way that we wrote this, what we are looking at is this mandate, which we absolutely claim was unlawful, was put into effect nearly 2.5 years ago. Now, technically it was rescinded at the very beginning of 2023 because of the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, but it went into effect 2.5 years ago, or almost 2.5 years ago. It was clearly unlawful, and we have yet to have any senior leaders within the military come out and acknowledge what has happened or acknowledge the constitutionally protected rights that were curtailed or the way in which people faced unlawful coercion to have this mandate go into effect.
So, I mean, you're saying a bunch of things here. You're saying by implication that the people who put this into effect didn't care about military readiness. They didn't care about the lives of the personnel they lead or in charge of. You're also saying that they're resistant to civilian control.
Yes, that's certainly what it looks like, you know. And when you look at what we wrote, and I'm just one of a core group of co-organizers that put this together, I would say the initial draft came from a gentleman named Rob Green, who is currently serving in the Navy, and I would tell you probably the most heroic person still in uniform right now. In fact, he wrote a book that was appropriately released on July 4th, 2023, with his name on the book as a currently serving naval officer, in which he detailed the plight that the service member has been enduring over the last couple of years because of these unlawful actions. And we have waited for senior leaders to come to their senses, walk this back, acknowledge the harms that they have unlawfully inflicted upon not just the service member, but their families, and by extension, the American public. And that has not happened. And I'm just going to tell you, Tucker, I'm a jovial guy. I like to laugh. My favorite type of movies are comedies, but it's time for serious people to get serious about serious matters. And so when you keep going, when you receive what you know as an unlawful order in the military, what do? You go to your superior. You tell your superior this is unlawful. If your superior does not relent or rescind the order, what do? You go to your next higher superior, and then you go to your next higher superior. Well, what happens when they're all in on this? Well, eventually you have to say, you know what? We live in a republic. We're going to pledge to the American people that we are no longer going to stand by and let what appears to be some sort of cartel that has infiltrated and overtaken our most precious institution. We're not going to stand by and allow that to happen any longer. I feel like we've been very patient. It's been 2.5 years, and while technically the the mandate itself has been rescinded. What has not happened is an acknowledgement that people were unlawfully harmed and a full attempt to try and restore as much as possible those who were harmed by those actions.
This seems of a piece, though. It's not happening in isolation. I mean, no one in military command was punished for the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. The only person who was punished was a Marine officer who said it was a disaster. The military has become aggressively anti-white in a country where white people have manned the military for 250 years. It's majority white, and they're against white people. The military has also made sort of threatening noises toward the population. I mean, it's a politicized force now. So what do you do about that?
Yeah, well, the truth is there are no easy answers. There are also no risk-free options. Now, anybody who is honest and loves their country, if you read our document, it is very clear. I mean, every word in that one-page document is meticulously calculated. We know exactly what we are communicating and exactly what we are not communicating. Anyone who is honest and loves their country knows that we are in no way calling for some sort of circumvention of the Constitution, suspension of the laws, or anything of the type. What we are actually saying is senior leaders in the Pentagon have willfully violated their oaths to the Constitution, have broken laws, and are violating the military's own clear framework of regulations. All we're asking is for those mechanisms that have been in place and that work, if they're allowed to work, all we're asking is for them to work.
At the core of this is funding. So you have the U.S. Congress continuing to send, hundreds of billions of dollars to the U.S. military every year, and no elected representative is seriously talking about stopping that until people are held accountable. So how do you apply pressure to the Congress to hold the Pentagon to account?
And again, we have to appeal to the people. So you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Tucker, that it's bigger than just the unlawful COVID-19 injection mandate. And that is true. And we understand that. And while our document is focused specifically on that because it was just so clearly and unequivocally unlawful, we acknowledge that there are bigger problems. You mentioned what happened with the withdrawal from Afghanistan a couple of years ago. There's also the rampant problems down at the border. There are also the woke problems within the military. It's much bigger than just this one issue. Now, we have decided to focus on this issue because we do believe that even if somehow you were able to fix those other